Vitamin B9 is known to improve mood, energy, initiative, alertness, concentration, psychomotor speed, and social activity. B9, or folate, folic acid, 5-methylene tetrahydrofolate, are water-soluble, and they're one of the 8 B vitamins. Folate functions as a coenzyme in single carbon transfer in the synthesis of DNA and RNA, and it converts homocysteine to methionine, which is used in the synthesis of S-adenosyl methionine, or SAMe. For the brain, folate is also involved in gene expression, amino acid synthesis, myelin synthesis, and it's required for the synthesis of neurotransmitters like dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Many users, including doctors and other health professionals, confuse folate with folic acid. They're not the same. Folate is involved in DNA and RNA synthesis, gene expression, amino acid synthesis, metabolism, and myelin synthesis and repair. Folate is required for the synthesis of dopamine, epinephrine, and serotonin. It's thought within research circles that folate's involvement in neurotransmitter synthesis is most responsible for mood and cognition, even increasing the effects of SSRIs in those who are being treated for depression. B9 is a water-soluble vitamin. It's used in red blood cell production. It helps to break down and to use proteins and just about every other process in your body. A folate deficiency is found in at least 1/3 of people suffering from depression. Folate touches nearly everything that's happening in your brain. Folate should be used as part of your diet. Green leafy vegetables, or foliage, are rich sources of folate, and this is how folate got its name. When you eat vegetables containing folate, or eat flour enriched with folic acid, an enzyme called MTHFR converts the folic acid and the food folate into 5-methylene tetrahydrofolate. Folate is the general term for a group of various tetrahydrofolate derivatives naturally found in food. Folic acid refers to an oxidized synthetic compound used in dietary supplements and in food fortification. Tetrahydrofolate can enter the main and natural folate metabolic cycle, and this starts out in the mucosa of your small intestine. Synthetic folic acid, on the other hand, undergoes initial reduction and methylation in the liver, where conversion to the tetrahydrofolate form requires the enzyme dihydrofolate reductase. One of the problems with choosing the unnatural folic acid version is there's low activity of the dihydrofolate reductase enzyme, combined with a high intake of folic acid, and you can end up with unnatural levels of unmetabolized folic acid throughout your circulation. Several studies have reported the presence of the unmetabolized folic acid in blood following the consumption of folic acid supplements or folic acid fortified foods. There's growing evidence in Western society that we generally test for excess levels of unnatural folic acid, due mainly to eating processed food and folic acid enriched flour, and we still suffer from a folate deficiency. High doses of synthetic folic acid can increase your risk of cancer, immune system damage, and other health problems. Another major problem affecting folate deficiency is problems with the MTHFR gene. Remember, this enzyme called MTHFR, the 5,10-methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme, is needed to convert folic acid and food folate into the 5-methylene tetrahydrofolate. The MTHFR gene mutation results in a folate deficiency. There's 2 common variants with the gene that affects the function of the MTHFR. They're called the C677T and the A1298C. Both variants are genetically inherited, and depending on their presence in your system, they can reduce the effectiveness of the MTHFR from 30 to 70%. Another cause for folate deficiency. Estimates of the prevalence of the mutation in the general population are around 60%. Some doctors report that nearly every patient in their practice has one or both of these MTHFR mutations, and there's clinical evidence of the association between both MTHFR mutations in depression, bipolar disorder, and in schizophrenia. Folate donates a metal group to homocysteine to make SAMe. The metal donor SAMe is then involved in the formation of phospholipids, glutathione, myelin, coenzyme Q10, carnitine, and creatine. Folate also synthesizes the enzyme cofactor biopterin, and this is crucial for the synthesis of major neurotransmitters like dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. The folate synthesizes DNA and tRNA. It recycles and reduces the inflammatory amino acid homocysteine, and it builds red and white blood cells and platelets. Folate influences neuroplasticity and neurotransmitters. It's required for the synthesis of dopamine, epinephrine, and serotonin. The active metabolite of the folate, the 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, participates in remethylation of the amino acid homocysteine, creating methionine. The S-adenosyl methionine, the downstream metabolite of methionine, is then involved in the numerous biochemical methyl donation reactions, including reactions forming all the above-mentioned neurotransmitters. Without the participation of the 5-methylene tetrahydrofolate in this process, the SAMe and the neurotransmitter levels decrease in the cerebrospinal fluid, and this contributes to the disease process of depression. Studies have shown those being treated for depression with SSRI antidepressants and not responding to these drugs can get much better response by taking folate with their antidepressants. Folate is involved in 1-carbon metabolism in the brain. This folate cycle is responsible for the synthesis of metal groups, which are utilized by SAMe in several methylation reactions involving nucleoproteins, protein phospholipids, neurotransmitters, and monoamines. Deficiencies of both folate and B12 can impair the methylation process, causing the accumulation of homocysteine. Low concentrations of folate in your blood, red blood cells, and cerebrospinal fluid are associated with depression and dementia. Research shows cognitive function is related to methylation process in the brain. This depression hypothesis is supported by the similar effect of SAMe on monoamine neurotransmitter metabolism, which is also implicated in depression. The lowest concentration of folate and SAMe in the cerebrospinal fluid is found in dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. Methylfolate works with B2, B6, and B12, as well as cofactors like magnesium in this methylation cycle in every cell in the body and in the brain. The metabolic process called methylation occurs when one molecule provides a metal group, which is a carbon atom linked to 3 hydrogen atoms, to another molecule. And this makes things like creatine, carnitine, coenzyme Q10, phosphatidylcholine, melatonin, and a bunch of other crucial neurotransmitters and substances in the body. Methylation is involved in cognition, repairing DNA, turning genes on and off, fighting infections and inflammation, getting rid of toxins, and much more. Problems with methylation, which can be caused by not enough folate, can contribute to addictions, Alzheimer's, anxiety, ADD and ADHD, bipolar and manic depression, chronic fatigue syndrome, dementia, diabetes, fibromyalgia, schizophrenia, and hypothyroidism. Methylation is not only involved in the synthesis of neurotransmitters, but breaking them down as well. This critical step, when broken, causes a buildup of neurotransmitters, and this can lead to seizures, insomnia, panic attacks, fits of rage, and more. A deficiency of methylfolate in the body can cause problems with the methylation pathways and lead to a deficiency of glutathione, your major antioxidant. This can take shape as fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, increased immune activation, chemical sensitivities, and even diseases like ALS, MS, and Parkinson's. Not enough folate and you can experience mitochondrial dysfunction. Depression, mood, and social function can decline. Cognitive function can decline. Concentration, cognition, and memory can decline. Risk of Alzheimer's and dementia increases. Risk of anemia increases. Irritability, forgetfulness, and mental sluggishness can increase. B9 supplementation can help to increase the density of serotonin and dopamine in the brain, and it can improve neurotransmitter signaling, helping you to cope with stress, lessen depression, and improve memory. Depression affects about a quarter of the US population, and they'll have at least one depressive episode in their lifetime. Worldwide folate deficiency is found in at least a third of those suffering from depression, and research shows folate levels, even in the normal range, might be inadequate for metal donation and for neurotransmitter synthesis. By adding folate or methylfolate to your diet, you're adding a necessary ingredient for the synthesis of the neurotransmitter dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. The active metabolite of folate participates in the remyelination of amino acid homocysteine, creating methionine. SAMe, the downstream metabolite of methionine, is then involved in several metal donor reactions, including forming most of the major neurotransmitters. The methylfolate also seems to save the day by stepping in and substituting for tetrahydrobiopterin, an essential cofactor in neurotransmitter synthesis. The bottom line, folate helps to boost alertness, attention, cognition, memory, and mood, and it helps to alleviate brain fog, anxiety, and depression. Up to 60% of us don't produce enough of the enzyme needed to break down the synthetic folic acid found in supplements and fortified food, like breakfast cereal and bread, and the simple presence of the imposter in the diet can likely contribute to many diseases. Users report dosing with methylfolate can boost alertness and energy levels. It can relieve chronic pain, can give tolerance for heat increases. The sociability can increase. There can be relief from depression, fatigue, and paranoia. Fewer headaches. Mental clarity can increase. They can be much happier, calmer, and more energetic. And gingivitis and gum inflammation can also decrease. Many who use antidepressants experience little or no relief in depressive symptoms, and researchers set out to find why the antidepressant medicines weren't working. Dr. Jerome Saris of the University of Melbourne decided to do a meta-analysis of clinical trials using nutrients along with antidepressants. The team found using omega-3s combined with antidepressants boosted their success. They also found strong evidence of methylfolate, vitamin D, and SAMe. The researchers showed using folic acid or inositol provided no benefit. The team concluded there was strong evidence for using the methylfolate form, omega-3, vitamin D3, and SAMe with the antidepressants to help their effectiveness and reduce depression. Another study in Milan compared using methylfolate with the antidepressant trazodone. 96 patients with dementia received either 50 milligrams of methylfolate per day or 100 milligrams of trazodone. After 4 weeks of treatment, depression scores for the methylfolate patients decreased more than those in the trazodone patients. A folate deficiency is associated with tripling the risk of developing dementia among the elderly. Researchers tracked 518 people over the age of 65 for 2 years for dementia development. They found that most of the onset of dementia was more likely in those whose folate levels fell in the 2 years. Another study published in the British Medical Journal looked at the neurological status of 24 folate deficient patients and compared them with a control group of 21 normal folate patients. The study showed a significant increase in organic brain syndrome in the folate deficient group. Organic brain syndrome is the general term used to describe decreased mental function caused by something other than psychiatric illness. A study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association evaluated nutritional status and cognitive function in 260 men and women older than 60 years. The study showed there was a significant relation between impaired abstract thinking ability and memory, and lower folate levels and intake. In another open study of 38 folate deficient subjects with depression, lethargy and memory impairment, 50 milligrams of folinic acid per week for 120 days significantly improved the visual-motor performance, visual-spatial memory, logical reasoning, associative memory, and activities for daily living. Recommended doses of B9 are 500 micrograms. If you decide to add folate to your diet, start with B12 in the form of methylcobalamin, and then introduce your dose of methylfolate and the cofactors such as B2, B3, B6, trimethylglycine, and vitamin C. If you have an adverse reaction to the methylfolate, like agitation, increased anxiety, or headache, you can take B3, which is nicotinic acid or niacinamide, in 50 mg doses every 30 minutes until you experience relief. Note, vitamin B3 niacin requires SAMe for its metabolism, and you can contribute to a drop in methylation if you're low in SAMe. It's also a cofactor for the enzyme COMT, and this breaks down norepinephrine, epinephrine, and estrogen, which are all potentially elevated if you're experiencing anxiety. High doses of B9, like those used in clinical trials, nearly always use synthetic folic acid. If you're deficient in B12, and many people are, this can manifest as anemia and look just like a folate deficiency. Large doses of folate could correct anemia, but without correcting an underlying B12 deficiency, could leave you at risk for irreversible brain damage. This is why the US Institute of Medicine advises all adults limit their intake of folic acid supplements to 1 milligram per day. It's unlikely that you'll encounter this problem by using folate or methylfolate instead of folic acid. But there's no science to back this up yet. High concentrations of unmetabolized folic acid in the blood, especially if you're low in B12, could result in a compromised immune system and problems with cognition. Other side effects of using folic acid, particularly in high doses, include stomach pains, insomnia, skin reactions, confusion, loss of appetite, nausea, and seizures. Many medications interfere with the folic acid absorption, including antibiotics, antacids, chemotherapy medicine, proton pump inhibitors, anti-seizure medicine, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and methotrexate. Studies have shown the active form of folate, methylfolate, which is more easily absorbed and easily crosses the blood-brain barrier, may be effective in the prevention and the treatment of depression and dementia. Your body doesn't make B9 on its own, so you have to get folate from food or as a supplement. B9 folate is especially helpful for people suffering from anxiety, depression, panic attacks, or OCD, and it can help to reduce insomnia and may increase energy levels. Experience shows B9 helps to stop and reverse the symptoms associated with high homocysteine levels. It's also particularly helpful to quell anxiety caused by social situations. It can also help you to get a good night's sleep. The recommended dose of B9 folate is up to 1000 micrograms per day, starting with the low dose of 500 micrograms to see how your body reacts. For more information on the other B vitamins and on the MTHFR polymorphism, which affects your vitamin B uses, check out the videos on my website. For more information about herbs, supplements, and natural treatment plans, check out my website.